Hello, and we are live. Fantastic. Welcome to the pre-show of REEDSY Live. My name is Martin. I'm part of the REEDSY team based here in London. Very happy to welcome you to a warm and pollen-filled London. As you might be able to tell from my quite nasally voice today, I am having a bit of the hay fever, but that won't stop us today as we bring you another REEDSY Live and another live editing session. Those of you may have seen these before. We bring on our head of learning, Tom Bromley, who's a seasoned novelist and editor, and he'll be editing a couple of manuscripts in front of your eyes, extracts submitted by folks at home, some of you folks, hopefully. If you're just turned up to this and you're not sure how this works, last week I sent around a newsletter, the REEDSY newsletter, asking folks to submit 500 words or something from the beginning of their novel manuscript. From this, we've picked a handful of them that Tom is going to feature on the presentation here as he goes through and does what an editor does with a manuscript. He'll react to it, he'll mark it up, he'll give suggestions and corrections and all the good stuff. So you'll get a good look into exactly how an editor works, what their brain goes through when they read a manuscript for the first time, and the sort of things that you can synthesize into your own writing process to get better and better every day. I'm going to, at some point, blow my nose, but not right now. While we wait for Tom to join, please do tell us where you're coming from, city, country, and we'll see who's here with us today. We have John Davis Frame from St. Louis, bookworm forever here in England. Where in England are you? Karen Johnson is from Oxford, not Oxford, England, but Oxford, Mississippi. Good to have you all here today. We have Sharon Clark Go. We have also Jackie Vegas, which is actually Rich from Southern California. We have who here from Oregon? Grace from the UK. Claudia from San Antonio, Texas. We have Tina Pollock from Mid-Ulster, Northern Ireland. Julie from Edmonton, Canada. Fantastic. Good to see so many people joining us here today. As we mentioned, we asked people to send in their manuscript excerpts. I think by the time we close, we're about 1,600. So hopefully some of you will have yours featured, but most of you sadly won't. But we'll be doing plenty of these in the future. So keep coming back for these. And during the presentation, we'll tell you how you can have a better chance at featuring in more of these live editing sessions, largely through our learning course that Tom teaches here at REEDSY. With Lady of the Lake from Wisconsin, music lover from India, Veronica Waith from the UK. Great to see so many folks turning up here. I just came back from a few days at the Self-Publishing Show Live here in London. If there are any viewers who were there just a few days ago, say hello. I know I spoke to some people who tune in every now and again to these REEDSY Lives, and it was fantastic to actually meet some of you in person. It was a true treat. Pretty Pluto from South Africa. We have AFJ Kernow from Cornwall. We have Joe Neidhart from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Lovely part of the world. I went there 2 years ago for a wedding. It was very nice, very high altitude. I was being reminded by quite a lot of people to constantly hydrate, which I think was a very good idea. We have Keo from South Africa, Craig O from NYC. Fantastic. Oh, John Davis says, Wimbledon is coming to my backyard in a few days. Tennis is starting. I'm ashamed to say, I've been making plans to sort of try get into Wimbledon for many years now and never quite got around to it. You can have the option of queuing up for day tickets, but I think the people who do that effectively like camp out for the night before, and I think with each passing year, that feels like less and less of an appealing prospect for me. Anyway, it is now just past 8 o'clock where I am here in the UK, which means it's 3 p.m. on the East Coast, midday on the West Coast, and very early in India, Hong Kong, and Australia and New Zealand. Beth Warren from Gold Coast, thank you for waking up so nice and early to join us. But yeah, I think it's time for us to get this show on the road. But before that, this week on REEDSY Live, we're live editing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to REEDSY Live, REEDSY'S ongoing series of webinars where we bring on professionals from the world of publishing to show you how to write and publish better books. This week is the return of our live editing sessions with Tom Bromley. He's our head of learning here at REEDSY, and we've asked people to send in extracts from their work in progress, and Tom will be analysing them, reading them, and live editing them right in front of your eyes. Thank you very much to everyone who sent in their manuscripts. We will be able to go through a few of them today, but due to overwhelming, fantastic interest, we won't be able to get to everyone's, of course. So without much further ado, let me bring on my guest for today, who is a novelist, an editor, a former publisher, and the ghostwriter behind countless best-selling books. He is also the head of learning here at REEDSY, where he teaches our acclaimed novel writing course, new term starting July 1st. However, you may know him best as a volunteer linesman for the Wiltshire Under-15 Girls Football League. Please welcome Tom Bromley. Tom, how you doing?
I'm very well, Martin. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. How's the football season going this year? Is it in play?
Oh no, we've finished for the summer, so I have a rest. Yes, it's a strange thing with the football where I think you get an official referee at that level, and then both teams have to provide a linesman. So then it's a look around amongst the dads whose turn it is. And I think the two things I've learned is firstly that 15-year-old girls run very fast, or certainly faster than me. And secondly, you think it's easy when you're watching on the television to make comments about the officials, and when you do it yourself, you realise actually what an incredibly difficult job it is to do.
Oh, does it make shouting at the telly during football games less fun?
Well, you just feel bad doing it, and actually, you have that thing where you get the hassle from the parents behind. All that he doesn't know what he's doing.
Fantastic.
But yeah, but anyway, but we're in the summer, so I've got 2 months off. And yes, as you were saying, that there's tennis coming up, and yeah, I've done that Wimbledon thing myself before of going after work and queuing up and getting in for like a tenner or something. It's great if you can get in. It's a really
Yeah,
good.
I may have to take the plunge and maybe try it this year, if not maybe next. One of these days.
One of these
Anyway,
days.
yes. Well, thank you for joining us again for this live editing for the uninitiated. Tom, could you tell us what they can expect from this session?
Yeah, so I'm going to look at kind of four pieces this evening. We've chosen a kind of selection of pieces from different genres, and the idea really is to try and show you an edit kind of live on screen, so you get a sense of. I suppose I've worked for 20, 25 years as an editor in different shapes or forms to show how a professional editor would look at these works and what can be improved and changed. And I always think that you can learn so much in that strange way from how someone else's work is tweaked, and hopefully there'll be some tips and techniques this evening you can take back and reflect and use in your own writing.
Cool. And yeah, people have been asking how we chose these manuscripts. It is in order of how much we like you, or maybe a bit more random than that, perhaps.
Well, we've got a huge. I think, as you said, we had sort of 15, 1600. I mean, I try and do a mix of genres, so I don't want to do it all one genre or this genre, and try and choose either pieces I really like or pieces where I think there's something teachable in terms of the techniques from what's been written. So that's roughly how I've selected the pieces. But I have to say, I had quite a long short. Can you have a long short list, or is that a long list? I don't know, but I had a anyway of pieces to whittle it down to the ones I'm going to look at this evening.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we've got a lot to get through, so do you want to start with the first one?
Yep, I'll get going. Will be good. We're going to start with a bit of science fiction. So this is an extract from a novel called Winter's Veil by Ian Harvey Brown. And as you can see, this is the beginning of the book, chapter one. And I will just give you a quick read of the piece first, and then I will talk through the edit. Chapter one: The Girl with the Lantern. Freya. 4th of January, plus 25. I hate roaches. Hate the way they scuttle, the sound of their clicking feet, their moronic eyes. They freak me out. Just at the sight of them, and I break into hives. So, when I saw a roach wagon in the scoot park towed by a noisy squad of blood raiders, I knew I had to move fast. It was midnight when the raiders arrived, the noise from their combustions shattering the silence of the overreach like a runaway steamer. I was bedded down with Zeved in the waiting room just below the wall. Seeing them, I snatched up the dog and sprinted to the makeshift dugout I'd built at the far end of the scoot park in case the militia ever came a-calling. The dugout was hidden under a fall of snow, and we made it just as a ragged troop started circling the scoot sheds. They must have found a breach in the wall, some crack in the outer defences, or a long-forgotten tunnel under the brickwork, or even a gate splintered by the ice. One thing was certain: the overreach would soon be crawling with them, would be lucky to survive the night. The roach wagon was an old medicart, its red cross still showing through the peeling camouflage. The raiders had stopped nearby, their engines idling, and one of them unhitched the wagon and opened the back. I could hear the roaches scuttling down the ramp. These weren't like ordinary roaches. They were the work of artificers, whippet size, modified to find and kill human prey for their masters. They were experts, and I was easy meat. I'd hidden the dugout from view, but forgotten to surround it with anti-roach powder, which most homeless carry with them to fend off roach attacks. The powder was supposed to confuse them, send them every which way. I could have snuffled some the day before from the Emporium, where they had an entire section devoted to what they called roach deterrents. Only with my bag already full of stolen goodies, the snatch hardly seemed worth the effort. And to make things worse, my footprints led from the waiting room over the scoot park and directly to where I was now sitting, like a sign that pointed, "Stupid human, this way." The roaches could smell blood. My blood. Zeved's too. They weren't choosy. Maybe there was even a market for dog blood. I saw them circling the dugout, their antennae twitching this way and that as they homed in on my position. There were 6 of them, ready to strip the dugout to shreds with their mandibles before they paralysed me with venom and drained my blood. They would store the blood in some special containers strapped to their abdomens, and once I'd breathed my last, the raiders would transfer me to their medicart, carve out my organs, and leave the rest for the roaches to feast on. Okay, this is a good, powerful, kind of gripping start to a science fiction story. And I always say when you're looking at beginnings of pieces, one of the questions is why now? Why are we dropping the reader in at this particular point? And I think right from that first paragraph, you get a sense of why we are being thrown in. This is a person who is under threat, under attack, and they have to move and get out of the way of these roaches. I also like the way that the author uses this specific detail to get the reader in. I think when you're writing a piece, whether it's science fiction or fantasy or anything that involves a bit of world building, one really good way of doing that is to start with a specific detail and then flesh out from there. And we have this great detail about the roaches, and it's done in all this beautiful detail. Hate the way they scuttle. So we've got this sound, the sound of their clicking feet, their moronic eyes. So at this point, we don't know too much about them, but I think the author allows the reader to flesh that out in their mind. And it's only later on in the piece when we get to learn a little bit more about what they're like and what they will actually do. I would tweak this opening paragraph in a couple of ways, because you've got this rhythm here in this first line. I hate roaches, full stop. Hate the way they scuttle, the sound of their clicking feet, their moronic eyes. So those clauses there in that second sentence are all roughly the same. And then we've got they freak me out. And actually, I think that shorter sentence there sort of trips up the rhythm for me. I don't think you need that. I think we get a sense that this character is freaked out by them. So I would take that out, and actually just tweak that slightly. So, just the sight of them and I break into hives flows a lot better. I would actually pause on sight because we've got sight here, and then when I saw a roach wagon. So actually, I would say possibly just the thought of them. Just the thought of them when I break into hives to make that difference. So when I saw a roach wagon in the scoot park, towed by a noisy squad of blood raiders, I knew I had to move fast. So I would just tweak that a little bit at the beginning. But as I say, I think that detail and that focus at the start works really well. We then kind of zoom out a little bit in the detail, which I do like. We've got the time setting here, midnight. And I think here is the challenge of getting all this scenery down, because we're now introducing more concepts. We've got the idea of the blood Blood Raiders, excuse me. We've got this detail of the wall, the overreach, the makeshift dugout, the scoot park. Here, actually, you've got the scoot sheds. I think there's quite a lot of detail in here at this point, and actually, for me, I got a little bit confused about some of it. I didn't think all of that landed, and possibly because this character is moving so quickly from one setting to the next, we don't get grounded quickly enough. So I would say, personally, I would have a little bit more time in that original location to help ground us, and then also when that character is moving across, a little bit more detail as they're making that run. So we've got the detail about the snow, the weather is bad, but here it just says we made it just as rugged troops started circling the scoot sheds. So this is the moment of action here. So I think for me as the reader, I want a bit more detail. So I think if that first bit is fleshed out a little bit, then we have a bit of action. We've got to get a good sense of the threat. Then it just helps to kind of ground the scene a little bit more. So I think the detail here is good, but it would help just to expand it out. I think for the reader with world building, learning precisely where we are, when we are, a little bit more detail about the location, all of that is really important. And I think it's a harder thing to do when you're writing these kind of pieces. So that I would say needs a little bit more to come in. Another thing I sort of noticed as I went through was the way that the author sort of finishes paragraphs really strongly and then is a little bit slow at the beginning. So if you look here at this one here, would be lucky to survive the night. At the end of the previous paragraph, I knew I had to move fast. But if you look at the beginning here, it was midnight when the raiders arrived. And in the next paragraph again here, we're into description again at the start. So that means that the beginnings are a little bit slower. I would find a way of keeping that pace up at the start. And I think as a section here, the paragraphs are of a reasonable length, and so the pace isn't too fast. But I think it's also slowed down a little bit because those beginnings aren't as grabby, perhaps, as the endings are. If the beginnings can be made as grabby as the endings of each paragraph, then I think that text will be a little bit stronger. Couple of details about seeing as well. I was slightly unclear about what the character could and couldn't see. So in this paragraph here, there's this detail. I could hear the roaches scuttling down the ramp, and then in this next couple of sentences, we then have this very good detailed description about what these roaches are like. And I wasn't sure whether the character could see them or not. Is there a little kind of slit or something that they can see the kind of the roaches through, or are they able to detect that just through the noise? So I'd make that a little bit clearer. The only phrases I pause a little bit over, I think the writing is generally pretty good. I was easy meat and stupid human this way. Both of those just felt slightly throwaway to me. And actually the mood and the feel of the rest of it is so strong that just took me out a little bit. But I like the writing. I like how it fits together. I think overall I would say it needs expanding out a bit more, I think, because we start with the hating and then we end here at the end with what they actually do, but we don't get that sense of threat in that strange kind of way. At the start, and I think one of the reasons that the start works is you get that sense of feeling, freak me out, I break into hives. At the end, where the character's describing them, we don't get a sense of whether they're feeling scared, whether they're feeling frightened, and that little bit of feeling, I think, would be the other element I would add into the mix. So I think as a start, I think this is a really good, intriguing beginning. I would stretch it out, that tension here, because the roaches are basically right on top of them by the end of paragraph 3. But you can have them coming, the action as they escape to this dugout, then the tension building as they arrive. All of that will help just expand out and give the writer just a little bit more space to do the scene setting, and add in a little bit more feeling as well. And then actually, I think you've got a really, really strong beginning to a science fiction story.
Cool, fantastic. So yeah, do you get the sense? In that one, at some point, it stops describing the action and it starts describing her imagination of what would happen next.
I think you need I think I mean, it's always that question of I think on the novel course I talk sometimes about this sort of idea about a sort of scene being like an accordion. There's bits where you expand and there's bits where you kind of contract, and squeeze in. So this I would say is a section I would expand out, and that element of whether you call it imagination, that element of feeling and emotion, I think is absolutely crucial. That's what the reader hones in on. So you've got that at the start of the piece, but then actually then it's a more matter of fact detail about what these roaches do, but you're not getting that that sense of I'm absolutely terrified.
Hmm.
And also the dog is being very well behaved as well. I should say, I'm not sure dogs I know would be that well behaved. So
Well, in this future, dogs could be very different for all we know.
they may be very different. That's true, but yeah, I thought it's a really strong piece, and I think, I do sometimes feel for people who are writing kind of science fiction or fantasy. Whereas if you're writing stuff just set in the present day, you don't have to do as much detail and kind of world building, but you've got that sort of extra layer of setting and description to kind of get down, and those different concepts to get in, and it's not an easy thing to kind of pull off at all. So I always think hats off to those writers and those genres who are able to do it. It's not an easy thing.
We have a question here from Cal Mitmit. I guess there's some people in the comments asking, how would you sort of classify this level of editing? I guess with relation to what we offer on the REEDSY marketplace, where we do split it into sort of developmental edits, which is sort of broader, high level look at stuff, editorial assessments, which is more of a letter or copy editing. If you were to offer an developmental edit, do you think you would go into this amount of detail on a paragraph by paragraph level?
Not normally. I'm trying to think. I think normally when you do a developmental edit, you're looking at the overall structure. So you might discuss the beginning if there are issues with the beginning about how that might be improved. But generally, when I do them, you're looking at the overall shape, you're looking at the balance between the characters, you're looking at the pacing, and details like that. And then a sort of copy edit or a line edit is more getting down into the specifics line by line. So I suppose here what I'm doing is I'm doing a little bit of both. So some of it of that, the bigger picture stuff, and some of it more kind of focused in on the specifics of the words used themselves.
Yeah, I think I've seen some of the editors we have when they're doing their developmental edit, they will take the sort of broader big picture view, but I think every now and again, if they see recurring issues, they might drill down into individual scenes or chapters. And
Yeah.
what the suggestions they have there will probably apply to so much of what they have elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think every editor is different in the package that they offer. So it's generally as a writer, it's working out what you need, at that particular stage in your writing journey, in terms of the book that you're working on.
Cool. So, yet again, those who tuned in for the pitch wars a few weeks ago, there's been controversy on whether these submissions are all too long. Tom, you want to guess how long the submission was? We said a maximum of 500 words.
Yes, no, they were. I think they were all about 500 words. Actually, the ones I
This one was precisely 500 words. So
500.
I
Okay,
think the writer may have done some creative editing just to squeak it in
okay.
under.
I'm not counting specifically. I mean, I know roughly how long they look on the page.
Cool. All right. Do you want to do the second one? We'll have a chat about the
Yeah.
course a little bit later, but let's crack on with number 2.
Yes, so we're switching here to cozy crime. I saw a thing today. Kind of Richard Osman was tweeting that they're doing the first day's filming on the Steven Spielberg, isn't it? He's doing the Thursday Murder Club. So this is obviously a very big genre at the moment, and I know a number of writers who are writing in this particular area of crime. So I thought I would pick one in this area. And so this is a piece by Heather Byrne. The book's called The Secret Life of Geraldine Harvey. And this section is called Daffodils, and it begins as follows. The newspaper headline screamed from my lap. Police follow new lead in Brighton jewel heist. I was about to read the article about the robbery in the lanes a few months back when Malcolm emerged from the house, picking his way down the garden path towards me. His trousers flapped in the breeze, and he squinted against the lemon sun as it speared through the morning clouds. Here we are, he said, placing the tray on the table and settling on the bench beside me. Spring, he said. I tried to, but my knees wouldn't oblige. is the most wonderful time of the year, he added. I smiled. He tugged the newspaper away, handed me the steaming mug, and we perched side by side like salt and pepper pots. The budding branches of the old beech tree we'd planted 50 years ago protected us overhead. What does that say? I pointed to the article. Malcolm plucked his reading glasses from his top pocket. New evidence has come to light, and investigations are ongoing. Probably nothing, just trying to keep the public happy. I hope they catch them, I said, thinking back to the days I worked in my father's jewellery store. Me too. There's far too much crime around. At least it keeps Sam busy. Sam, our grandson, had been in the police force for over 5 years. I reached for a biscuit. Anything happening today? I asked. Malcolm had been acting strangely recently, and sometimes prepared me for one of his announcements with a shortbread or custard cream. Not much, he shrugged. But, I held up the shortbread, ran out of rich tea. I'll go to the shop later. I'll do it. The walk will do me good. Better still, how about we jump on a train to London? If we catch the next one, we'll be in Oxford Street before the lunch specials are over. Malcolm's eyebrows lowered over his eyes. London? It'll be fun. There's nothing to stop us. I don't know, not today, eh? But it's going to be a beautiful day, perfect for it. When was the last time we visited the Wallace collection? He twisted his mouth to one side. The Laughing Cavalier might cheer you up, I mumbled. Malcolm let out a breath. I don't need cheering up. Please? The skin of his forearm was loose under my touch. Another time. But, just leave it, Jerry. Okay. The harshness in his voice pierced the air. I remained silent, except for a little tut as I munched on my shortbread. Okay, this is obviously quite a different piece in terms of kind of style and feel to the first extract we looked at, and it's different in feel as well in terms of obviously this is quite dialogue heavy, and so it creates a different rhythm in terms of the pace of the piece. I think with the first one, the paragraphs were quite long or kind of reasonably lengthy, so the pace was slow. When you've got dialogue like this, then the pace is really quick and speedy. And if I flick through, look at that second page in particular, we're being kind of zapped through. And if you look at the actual dialogue as well, you know, each of those utterances are all quite short. It's good dialogue and it's good detail there. And I really like the voice of the section. I think, you know, I've got a good sense of these central characters of Jerry, Geraldine, you know, and Malcolm, her husband, and that's not easy to get across. So I would applaud the author for doing that. We've got that little bit of location as well. You know, that's quite nicely dropped in terms of kind of, we've got this detail about Brighton. The Lanes is an area in Brighton as well. So as a reader, I know immediately kind of where we are in the section. I'm going to divide this into three as I go through. And so this first bit, I want to look just a little bit at the use of verbs. I always say that the verbs are kind of really important, but all words are important. But I think verbs in particular make such a difference when you're writing, and it's important for two reasons. Firstly, you want them to feel kind of active rather than passive, and secondly, you want them to feel kind of specific rather than general. And so a few here, if we look at this opening paragraph, screamed here, I pause at that as a headline because it doesn't seem that verb doesn't match up with that headline there. So there's a question of why it screams. I suppose there's a question mark there, but that to me didn't feel the right choice of verb. It felt too strong for what follows. And then when Malcolm comes out, he emerges from the house. I think that's quite a general word. Picking is sort of okay because I can imagine him doing it, but again, I felt that could be stronger. I like the little bits of movement here, the trousers flapping and squinting here. Speared as well is good. So those are stronger. And a little bit further down here, placing I think could be stronger. Settling, you know, kind of tugged his movement. Handed probably could be stronger. Perched as well. I think that one's all right, but I think overall, I think that verb choice is mixed, I would say. So if I was going back through this piece, I'd be looking at these verbs and seeing which ones I could change and which ones I could improve. The second thing I would say is this use of this joke here. I think humour in writing is always very difficult, and I know that because I try and do it occasionally myself. And here there's a sort of the pun or the punchline is that he says spring, and then our protagonist tries to kind of jump or move, and then he says it's the most wonderful time of year. That joke only sort of works if there's a pause, and there wouldn't particularly be a pause in that sentence. So I thought for me that joke didn't work. It fell a little bit flat, um, and it almost like it was trying too hard. And then actually, as we go on in the piece, and we got this lovely detail about the biscuits. The humour is there, but I would let the humour come out a little bit more through the characters, through the setting, through the situation. I think that to me, I understand that the author's trying to get the humour in, but it doesn't quite feel strong enough to me. I think that needs sort of revisiting a little bit. I'd also say in this opening section that I just wanted a little bit more detail in terms of setting. So we know the character's in the garden, but she's Malcolm's coming from the house. We don't know what the house is like. We know there's a bit of garden here. There's a garden path. They're on a bench. There's a table, but we're sort of working that out. It's quite general, and really with Malcolm, apart from his trousers flapping in the breeze, we don't really know what he looks like. So I think here just a little bit more detail and a little bit more in terms of specifics, I think would be useful in here at the start. As the piece goes on, I should say I love this detail here. We put side by side like salt and pepper pops. I think that's such a nice image. And then in this middle section, we've got all these little bits of information dropped in. So this line here, the budding branch of the old beech tree we planted 50 years ago protect us overhead. So we know roughly how old the characters are and how long they've been married. I think that's really, really well done. Then, as they're talking about the jewellery theft, we have the protagonist saying, I hope they catch them. Thinking back to days I worked at my father's jewellery store, and that to me started to feel like it was a little bit shoehorned in, perhaps. And then we've got a similar one here. At least it keeps Sam busy. Sam, our grandson, had been in the police force for over 5 years. I think getting information in a story is really difficult to get in. I think with the science fiction piece, I said I think we need a little bit more. Here, I think that first one feels really nicely done. The second two just feel a little bit too dropped in to me. So I'd find a way, if you want that detail in it right at the start, I would smooth it out a little bit more to get those in and make those feel a little more natural. Got all this lovely detail about biscuits. I like biscuits. I always like biscuits in there. The detail I thought about London I felt was a little bit strange, needed explaining. But what I really like in this page here is how the author uses the little bits of body language to punctuate the scene. So we've got Malcolm's eyebrows lowering over his eyes, Ron kind of raising eyebrows, which I really, really like. He twisted his mouth to one side here. He lets out a breath. The skin of his forearm was loosened on my touch. I remained silent except a little touch. I munched on my shortbread. You can see roughly from where I've highlighted that it's coming in kind of regularly, but not overdone. So you've got that nice balance between the conversation and these little bits of detail. And then we just got this little bit of tension here at the bottom here. The harshest voice pierced the air. So there's something going on there which we don't quite know about. We've got this mystery of the jewellery heist as well. So the plot is ticking along underneath. It's not overt right at the start, but it's all in there in evidence. And I think as a beginning, I think bringing out a bit more description setting at the start will help. A little tweak of that joke as well. But there's a lot of voice in here, and the characters are kind of well set up. And as I was saying, I think as a genre, this is one that's kind of working really, really well at the moment. So a good area to be writing in.
Cool, fantastic. So, for those of you who are new to this, this format is something that Tom does as a part of his REEDSY'S course on novel writing. I mentioned before we have our new term starting on July the 1st, but every Monday there is a live masterclass where all students taking any of the courses can tune in for a bunch of different sort of programming. There are guest authors most of the weeks, but then there are also these live sessions, I believe, every month. So yeah, Tom, like how do these sessions in the course differ from what people are seeing right here?
I suppose. Well, I suppose the main difference is that some of the pieces I'm looking at like this are kind of beginnings of books, but generally people are putting in chapters as they're ongoing during the course. So it's more in a sort of work in progress kind of way. Um, so we do, yeah. I run several of these over the duration of the course, and as you say, I intermingle them with sessions with guest authors and sometimes kind of masterclasses from me as well. But I think in the course, I tend to try and go into a little bit more detail, so kind of link it in a little bit where I can to the teaching on the course and going on some of the specifics there as well. But it's sort of a similar setup, and I suppose because the groups are smaller, then generally everyone who wants to have a piece edited gets the opportunity over the duration of the course.
Cool. And yeah, I think this is like something like what, the fifth or sixth class that is starting next week.
Yes, I think it might be like six. I think yes, I lose count. Yeah, I think the first one we had a sort of this time last year, so we're just coming up to our first year anniversary of groups, which is a nice milestone.
Yeah, at this conference I was at this week, I met one of your students.
Okay,
I think had taken, I believe, the class starting in February, and she was so inspired that I think while she's editing her first manuscript, she has started writing a second book. So
brilliant.
that's good testimonial. Brendan Shea asks, how much does the course cost? I believe it is $1,200 or thereabouts. But if you stick around till the next break, we have a discount code to share, which will take the edge off of some of that. But compared to some of the other courses available out there, this is a testimonial from people who've taken before. A much better and greater value, I believe is the line. But yeah, Tom, you used to teach a similar course at Faber Academy, I believe.
Yes, so I think when we did the costing, so there's groups like the Faber Academy and Curtis Brown and a couple others, and generally those I think our costs are about half what those other courses are. We try to kind of bring the price down to make them more accessible, but you get a lot of teaching. I mean, you get your daily video of 10 to 15 minutes. It's content rich, the course, and what's quite interesting is a lot of people who finish the course after 3 months then go back and either redo the teaching or they kind of revisit, or I've had some students who've got to the end of the course and then they've taken the course again themselves for like a second time to work through everything because there's a lot to take in.
Oh, Nick Simmons says, are they doing a commercial? I'll let you in on a secret, Nick. If someone gives you something for free, it's always a commercial. Uh, cool. Tom, you want to hit up the next one?
Yes, no, I'm ready to go. We are going to go fantasy romance or romantasy, whichever way around you want to talk it. And this is a piece by Jen, and this is from a story called In the Forest of Eternal Darkness. And there's a couple of swear words I should add in this piece as well. So if you're offended by that, I apologise. I might have been born to wear a crown, but I preferred to wield a blade. After all, who else was going to punish the dark, fey assholes who hunted and killed the innocents unlucky enough to be found in the forest? Even though I knew I was committing an act of treason against the unseelie court, the same court I would one day rule. But before the unseelie crown ever touched my head, declaring me queen, I had to stop the war between the two courts. A war that started over 100 years ago when my father, the king of the unseelie court, ripped a hole in the veil between the fairy realms. I stood in the shadow of a large oak tree, watching as a redcap stalked an innocent nymph enjoying her morning bath in a nearby stream. His pale, wrinkled skin, bright red eyes, and the blood-soaked cap covering his head were a stark contrast to her sun-kissed skin, delicate features, and glittering gossamer wings. If I thought he was merely taking a mental picture for when he visited Pound Town, later, and not sharpening his claws to strip the skin from her bones, I'd let him be. But I knew better. The redcap was out for Seelie blood, and I'd be lucky if I didn't feed him his own goblin balls for a Yuletide feast. I snuck through the foliage, careful to avoid the deadly bittersweet nightshade that had slithered through the rip in the unseelie portal, along with all the other unseelie creatures that slipped through too. Pushing leaves out of my way, I watched the redcap sneak up on his prey. Blood dripped down to his cheeks, evidence of the other unlucky fairies who had crossed his path. Blood used to keep his cap wet, because if it were ever to dry, he would perish. He stepped into the open, ready to make his move. Not on my watch. I stuck my index fingers in my mouth and whistled. The sound echoed through the forest, snagging Nymph's attention and sending her scurrying from the creek. Hey, fuckface. I stepped into the sunlight, filtering through the dense canopy, and pulled back the hood of my fur-lined cloak. I needed to give the Nymph time to find the well-hidden portal back into the Seelie realm, a portal that was magically glamoured to be invisible and spelled to move every day at dawn. The Redcap's focus shifted from prey to princess. Bugger off, Fallon. The king says I may hunt here. My father said no such thing. Hell, my father hadn't said anything in the past 3 years. Not since he had fallen into a coma after ripping the hole in the veil in his pursuit to punish my mother's murderer. The Redcap raised a gross, twisted and gnarly hand, pointing a lethal claw at me. Fine. The commander said I may hunt here. Okay, so again, a little bit like cozy crime, kind of fantasy romance, kind of romantasy is a a very popular genre at the moment. There's a lot a lot of interest in people writing this area. So again, it's a good area to write in. The first thing I want to say about this as a piece is I think this opening. Actually, I mean, someone's just said there. So Kathleen said in the comments that I love the opening sentence. I think that opening sentence is absolutely brilliant. I mean, there you are capturing, a character in a phrase. I think we know a lot about this, this person Fallon right at the start. I might have been born to wear a crown, but I preferred to wield a blade. I think that's such a strong beginning. If I was still a commissioning editor and this came in and I read that opening sentence, I'd carry on and read the whole of the extract for sure. What I like as well, actually, I think this whole first paragraph sets us up so well. So we've got that opening sentence there where we get a feel of who Fallon is, and then we've got this sense of her being a rebel. Who else is going to punish, these dark assholes who hunted and killed the innocents and lucky enough to be found in the forest? So we know that this is a good person. We're on this person's side. Then we have this. This sort of thickening and this challenge, even though I knew I was committing an act of treason. So even though she's, she knows that she's in trouble and in danger from doing so, she's still going to go ahead and do it by this court. And then this little sort of kicker at the end, the same court I would one day rule. So in that opening paragraph here, it's not long. It's just kind of 3.5 lines, but there's so much going on in there. I think the writing is good. And it sort of grounds the reader in that character right at the start. It works really, really well. And actually, I think out of all the pieces, that is the beginning that for me absolutely kind of stands out as a start. We then have this little bit of transition in the section. So this second paragraph, which is short here, is giving us a little bit more detail and background. And I was talking earlier about the importance of kind of world building. And here we have two details I think are crucial. Before the unseelie crown ever touched my head to claim me queen, I had to stop the war between the two courts. What we don't know actually who the two courts are. We talk about the unseelie court here, but we don't know what the second one is. So I think if you're going down that route, that needs to be spelled out a little bit more. And then we have the detail about the father here, and how there's a hole in the veil between the fairy realms. So actually, it's a little bit of info dumping, possibly, but I think in the context, I think it's okay. I mean, I did wonder whether we should get to this point here more quickly, where we're into the scene itself, and probably drop that stuff in. And it might be worth, if I was the author, going back through and seeing if you can go straight from this opening paragraph into this scene and bringing in this little, this information during the scene itself. I think that might be the kind of way around to do it. I mentioned at the top there was some kind of swearing in there. We've got that right here at the beginning with assholes. Then there's like the F word. There's bugger in there as well. The phrase pound town as well. I must confess I had to look up. So it's quite colloquial in that kind of way, and I wondered about that in terms of mood and feel, because I suppose it feels quite embedded in the present day, that use of language. So part of me wonders if it's if we are in some kind of fantasy world where actually there should be a bit more invented swearing and kind of fantasy swearing, and certainly phrases like kind of fuckface took me out of the moment a little bit. And I think as the reader, you don't want that. As a writer, I would think about that and take pause. I mean, it creates a feel. It feels quite fun and sparky, as a consequence of having these words in there. But it did make me pause a little bit. And where we go into this scene, or into the forest, I think this description probably could be a little bit stronger. We start here, it's feeling a little bit static. I stood. I would always kind of countenance against that. If you can get some movement in there kind of straight away, I think that would be good. A large oak tree, large is quite a general word. Is there a better descriptive word that could be used there? The morning bath in a nearby stream. I think this detail here could be a little bit stronger in terms of the setting. We then have good detail, actually, I think, of the red cap as this character is described, and the nymph in the second paragraph. Again, possibly some of it could be stronger. So, delicate features is quite general. Glittering gossamer wings is a lot better. I get a good sense of more kind of visualization there. But I think in terms of the descriptive setting, a little bit more could be done. The author uses these kind of single sentence paragraphs very well. Possibly there's too many of them. Maybe you just need, if you use these two here, you possibly don't need this one here. I think this one here can probably be merged into what comes to follow. Where we're getting this description, that's the thing I was going to say. There's this little line here. I watched the redcap sneak up on his prey. I always say, if we're with the point of view character, I think you can see what that character can see. So we don't need to have I watch. As soon as you do that, then they feel a little bit more kind of passive, a little bit more observant. So you can just have the redcap, snuck up on his prey, or something like that. We don't need to have I watched. That doesn't need to be there. Again, as within with the science fiction piece earlier, a little bit more feeling in here, I think would be good. The good verbs here, though, I should say, snuck I like, kind of slithered. There's nice little bits of movement here, and that works very well. The paragraphs in the second half of the scene are shorter, so that means that the pace is increased. I think that works kind of very, very effectively. And again, I think just a little bit more in terms of feeling, really. Is this character scared of the redcap? This moment here, the redcap's focus shift from prey to princess. Is he angry? Is he threatening? Is he dismissive? Whatever that is, that needs to kind of come in a little bit more at this particular point. A little bit like in the Cozy Crime Police, this detail about punishing my mother's murderer feels a little bit dropped in here. I wonder if that's needed at this point, whether that can be saved for a little bit later. And a couple of these descriptive words at the end here, a gross hand, a lethal claw. I think those can be described a little bit stronger as well. But I think overall, I love the voice here, and I think that all comes back from that first paragraph. I've got a good sense of this character right from the word go, and if you can find a way of grounding your protagonist, it's so effective, and it just sets you off on the front foot. And yeah, it's a good start, I would say, and this is a character who I would be quite happy to spend more time with as the piece goes on.
Cool. We have actually a point one of our viewers made. Tina Pollock says, it's the Seelie and Unseelie court, very well known in related lore, so may not need spelling out if the intended audience are enthusiasts of the genre.
I'm showing my ignorance there of related lore.
But
Okay.
yeah, I guess it is a thing, I suppose. Like when you're really deep into a genre, a lot of stuff that you do take for granted, you may have to spell out a little bit more for people who, are first timers.
Yeah, I mean that would only take a line, to say, the two courts, the Seelie and the Unseelie. Once that's in there, then you're off and running. So yeah, I would be tempted to drop that in for the wider reader. I would say.
Cool. Well, Nick, we're about to do a bit more promotion, so you may want to tune out for the next 30 seconds or so. But yeah, Tom, as a part of the course you run, you have guests on most of the time. on Mondays, very often authors. Who's coming up in the next month or so?
So who we got? So on Monday night we've got a crime author called Joe Furness, who's written a fantastic book called Roadkill, which is a murder mystery set in a traffic jam. Which I just think is a brilliant concept for a book. So that the challenge is to find the murderer before the gridlock clears and they drive off into the sunset. So I think she describes it. Yeah, it's the first world gridlock mystery. So we got her on Monday. I've got on July the 15th a writer called Nicholas Binge, who's written a novel I think called Ascension, if I'm remembering correctly, which is speculative time travel horror thriller. There's lots of different things going on in that one. I think he's got an amazing quote from Stephen King on the front, which probably says you everything you need to know about that one. And then Judith Hennigan, who's a brilliant literary novelist as well. So we try and get writers from different genres. We have a good hour with them where we talk about the book in detail, and there's plenty of time for all the students to ask questions as well. I think they're kind of really, really useful sessions to have. And I think that I should say as well that although we have the sessions live, we have this whole library of the previous live sessions. So all the authors we've had over the last year, you can go back through, have a look and listen to some of those interviews as well.
Someone's asked, how do you account for variance in time zones? I believe that most of those masterclasses take place at 8 p.m. So roughly this time. It's not super convenient to tune in live sometimes, but it's, I think, a time in which most of our intended audience at least is awake.
It's the best fit, I think, and all the live sessions are recorded. So if you can't make it, you can always kind of watch back afterwards. I should say, and I think someone said in the comments, it's a dead kill, not roadkill. I'm maybe getting overexcited with my my roads with that particular book, but yeah, it's a fantastic book. Either way, but yeah, I think we've had a couple where we've done them later. So I interviewed an American author called Kelly Garrett, and we did that at 10 o'clock UK time because she was in the States. But usually the 8 o'clock is the normal time.
Yeah, like when we first started doing these webinars, I did an experiment of, I wonder what it would be like if I did it in the evening for Americans. So I stayed up till 2 a.m. to see fewer people tuning in. I went to sleep bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. and I was like, never doing that one again. Anyway, let's hit up the next one. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, we've got one more to go, so I'll get stuck into that. And we're going to finish with women's fiction, as Rihanna has described. And this is the beginning from a piece called Say You Were Wrong. I don't care how fruity a wine tastes or for how many decades it's been aged, so long as it's strong enough to erase the last 8 months of my life, I'll drink it. But even I draw the line at paying over the odds for a glass of $2 chuck from Trader Joe's in a grimy small-town hole in the wall. And the worst part? It isn't even chilled. I'm pretty sure I asked for Cabernet Sauvignon. And I asked for a lottery win, but here I am, still busting my goddamn balls. The bartender unscrews the cap and pours from the bottle. That'll be $4 when you're ready. Resisting the temptation to take my crappy day out on his crappy face, I bite my tongue and scoop out the last few coins from my purse, only to discover I'm 50 cents short and one shit away from caring anymore. Lady Luck just loves to evade me lately, an elusive genie that never wakes up, no matter how hard I rub. Do you take card? He raises an eyebrow. Does it look as if I take card? No, I sigh. It does not. A quick rummage through my handbag produces an old lipstick and some crumpled up receipts, harsh reminders of the past filled with fouettes and lacy lingerie. I scrunch them in my hand, but even the pierce of sharp nails in my palm doesn't wet my eyes these days. It's a shame I've forgotten how to cry, because a few crocodile tears would come in handy right now. Guess I could always flash my double Ds instead. Mother would be proud. Well, in the absence of any willingness on your part to make it as easy as possible for your customers to spend their hard-earned money in this establishment, I'll offer you $3.50, my total forgiveness for any inconvenience caused, and a stick of gum to sweeten the deal. I force the biggest, brightest smile I can muster. You never know when you might need it. Despite my best efforts, the glass slides from my reach, taking with it the last shred of hope I had left for any shut-eye tonight. You'll never be able to sleep without me by your side. And now I wonder if Daniel was right. Excuse me, miss, but you dropped this. I turn at the sound of a low voice, only to be greeted by the face of yet another man I don't recognise. All dark-haired, square-shouldered and bold, with a frown cut on his brow and a $5 bill in his hand. What the hell does he want now? I've travelled 1,000 miles for some peace and quiet, and all I've had so far is noise. That isn't mine, I say, despite desperately wanting to accept the money. It's been a long day, and I could really do with this drink. Screw what the doctor tells me. I'd just prefer it without an aperitif of this stranger's pity. Why, sure it is. I saw it fall from your purse, so you should take it. I tilt my head, prop an elbow on the bar. And what makes you think I need some hillbilly disguised as a knight in shining armour to swoop in and save the day? Beats me, he shrugs, but I suspect the fact that you can't even buy yourself a $2 chuck may have something to do with it. Okay, so this is fun. I think this is another piece where I'm getting a good sense of the protagonist and of the voice as well. I mean, I always say to my students, whenever I talk to agents and editors in terms of what they're looking for, when submissions are kind of sent in, the thing they talk about above anything else is voice. So if you can get that when you're writing in the first person, you can get that, particularly into the character as well. It's a really, really strong way in to kind of get people interested in terms of what it is that you are writing. Couple of things I want to go into just a little bit of detail at the start here, just into the writing itself, and let's just have a look at this first sentence for a moment, because it's good, but it's not quite there, and I think it needs a little bit of editing. I'm going to try and explain why I think that's the case. I don't care how fruity a wine tastes or for how many decades it's been aged, so long as it's strong enough to erase the last 8 months of my life, I'll drink it. There's a lot going on in there, and I think actually for any sentence, but particularly for an opening sentence in the book, you want to make that as strong as possible. So the first thing I would say, actually, in that strange kind of way, is I would look at the ending first. Where should this finish? And I think this little bit at the end, so long as it's strong enough to erase the last 8 months of my life, I'll drink it. I don't think we need I'll drink it there, because we sort of know that she's going to drink it. And actually that final bit, to erase the last 8 months of my life, is the kind of the emotional bit. That's we're less interested in what she's drinking as why she's drinking. So firstly, I would take that little bit out there at the end to finish that, and then I'm going backwards on this for some reason, but that next clause, or the next final clause, so long as it's strong enough to erase the last 8 months of my life, when you're thinking about the text and you're thinking about the flow and the rhythm, it's thinking about where the emphasis of the key words land. And so as I say this, hopefully you can hear where they should land. So long as it's strong enough to erase the last 8 months of my life. There's a little bit too much going on there, so it trips up. So you've got this internal rhyme here with long and strong. So I think it should be, but it's too quick. So long as it's strong, I think you want something like, I don't know, I would have just so long as it's strong enough. And then having that word there at the beginning changes the rhythm and the flow and where the emphasis lands. And then you've got, erase and 8, and then life at the key moments. So actually you've got last night again, it's possibly too much, so it just needs that little bit of tweaking to do it. But normally I would say if a sentence isn't quite flowing or doesn't feel quite right, read it out loud, have a listen and feel, okay, what are the important words, where should those land? And if we just look at that first sentence here as well, the first part of the sentence, excuse me, I don't care how fruity a wine tastes or for how many decades it's been aged. I think again you can thin that down. I don't think you need that. I don't care how fruity wine tastes or how many decades it's been aged. I think again you can just simplify that a little bit. And these aren't big tweaks, but sometimes you just shift things slightly. Then it just changes the rhythm and the flow of the sentence and gets the emphasis right. We get this sense of this character being, I think, slightly capricious, that she says, I don't care about this, but then immediately here we have a reason why she does care, which is quite interesting. And then when we go towards the end of the extract, where she's offered the money, she's desperate to accept this, but she doesn't want to, doesn't take the stranger's pity. So again, here she's sort of saying one thing and then meaning another. So I don't know if that's deliberate or not, if that's part of her as a character, but it's something that kind of stands out. Whilst I'm on this page, we talked in the cozy crime scene about dropping information in. Again, I think this is happening a little bit here. There's facts that we don't know that much about. I've travelled 1,000 miles. Screw what the doctor tells me. And there's this detail about this guy Daniel as well. Daniel is dropped in here. You'll never be able to sleep without me by your side. I think that line probably needs to be in italics, I would say. But again, I think thinking about the information, I think is really, really important, where to drop it in. And here again, it just feels like there's a little bit too much just being thrown in a sort of throwaway way without it being kind of properly kind of set up. But I think there's a lot in here. Yes, I'm just looking at the time. Otherwise, I would go into this in a little bit more detail. But I just wanted to kind of bring on that opening sentence in particular. And I might be. I've already been shown my ignorance on the relative laws of different kind of fairy realms. But you don't want your Cabernet Sauvignon to be chilled, I don't think, do you? I think Martin Price probably a better idea than me on that. But yeah, so little details of that just kind of need kind of tightening up. And I would like just a little bit more detail in description as well. But I think the character's good, the voice is good, the text just needs a little bit tweaking in terms of the language and the information. But it's a good, intriguing, strong start, I think, for the genre that the author is writing in.
Cool. Yeah, I think. It certainly shouldn't be chilled, but that, I guess, tells us something about the character.
Maybe who has chilled? Is that a thing? Chilled red wine?
Well, if you're having a Beaujolais, I think that there are a few red wines which are chilled.
But not a Cab Sav.
No, obviously not. No, not even a $2 chuck from Trader Joe's, which I understand is like a fairly reputable store in America. So, but we can learn a lot more from reading that manuscript. Okay, final bit of promotion. We're going to be talking about how to write a novel course, which we mentioned before. The new term is starting on July the 1st. Tom, you're in perfect position. Seeing as this is our summer course, I've prepped a special different slide just for that one. Put a little hat and sunglasses on you. Special summer edition. So, Tom, tell us a bit more about what folks can sort of expect to learn if they enroll in the course.
Yeah, so it is our classic. It's the 15-week course. The idea is that you're joining the course to try and write that full first draft from beginning to end over the 15 weeks. There's daily teaching, kind of Monday to Friday, and then we have an author interview panel each Saturday. So you're getting 6 videos a week. Each of those weeks are kind of themed on different writing topics. So there's one on character, one on plot, one on description, one on dialogue, and so forth. You've got your community site where you chat and discuss with your other writers. We have something called Feedback Friday, where you can share and review each other's work kind of once a week. And as we were talking about earlier, you have your live sessions with me on a Monday. Sometimes they're live editing like this, sometimes they're guest authors, and sometimes you get a masterclass from me as well. So a good mix of stuff. And if you're interested in getting that book written, and that's what you want to spend your summer doing, come and spend it with me.
Cool. And as we mentioned before, the cost of the course is $1,249, which is taken to just under $1,000 with the promo code here. We also have an option to split payments into 4 installments of $349. So yeah, if that helps soften the blow, that also helps there. So the promo code and the link is in the description of the video below. If you're interested, do sign up. If you sign up, you can get actually access to 1 whole week for free, and if you're not keen on it, you can cancel it before it starts, but I'd cancel it quick because it starts on Monday. All right, should we hit up one more, Tom, and then call it a day?
No, we're done. I've done my... We're doing 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I must have mistimed those. Cool. That is day drinking basis. That is US dollars. But you're very welcome to pay in any currency. But yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Tom. We've a question here. Sue Montgraf asks, how much one-on-one do we receive?
So we do the live editing. So most people over the course will get their work critiqued in that way, and then I am there on call throughout the course. So it tends to be, some students use me, and show me stuff as the course goes on. Others kind of will work more with the writers, but I'm sort of there and available in that regard. We do have the option, you can do an add-on for book coaching for a small fee if you want to work with a specific book coach during the duration. And I think there's details on the course about that as well. I can't remember how much it is at the moment.
I think it's just under 300. And for that one, you'll have a book coach who'll be there to sort of give you personal guidance, to help get feedback on some of your manuscript at regular intervals, and yeah, sort of be your guide through the course there, your course supervisor in a sense. Cool, fantastic. Tom, thank you very much. Thank you for giving up a bit of your Thursday evening for us.
You're welcome.
Great. No doubt we'll do another one of these in the future. Thank you, everyone who has sent in their submission. Anyone who wasn't shown today will be purged from our system, so don't worry about any privacy issues there. And we'll see you all the next one, or on the course starting Monday. Bye, everyone.